Hey folks, Joe Falong here, back with my usual BS of Tediores in Borderlands games. When I first started going through this playthrough with Rafa, I had not intended to make these decisions that ended up making this build very similar in spirit to my Tediore Prime Zane build. In essence, I guess you could call this build a cousin to my Zane build. El Tediore Primo Rafa is a Tediore Reload focused build that also works as a hybrid setup with enough damage to utilize grenade ordinances and Apophis lance offensively, and not just to proc skills that boost the damage for Tediore Reloads. This build's strength comes from overdrive bonuses, which gives it a very high highs playstyle while trying to minimize the low lows. If you wish to look at this build in text format, I have a link to my write-up on the Mobalytics website. While I am not a sponsored partner, all of my friends are, and so I wish to support them in any way that I'm able to. So the majority of the damage from our skill tree comes from a couple key skills. In the remote agent tree, we have Barrage, which gives us splash damage when overdrive is active. And in the blue tree, the bulk of our damage is really coming from El Soldado. This one gives gun damage while overdrive is active, which isn't, the best part about it. The best part is that when you're charging your Apophis lance, the bonus is doubled, but not in the way that you would think. The bonus actually is a different multiplier, if you're familiar with the damage formula, than the entire soup that everyone else is familiar with. So the charging bonus is an on-shot modifier, which makes it additive to gun type damage and gun damage on your enhancement. So this is a massive multiplier that applies to our Tediore Reloads. And the fun part of that is that, not to get confused, but we have Soldado, which does double all of those bonuses. So those two main skills, Barrage, El Soldado, as well as the minute 20% global damage that overdrive itself is giving. So this is giving us the bulk of the damage from our skill tree, as well as other skills such as El Valiente, Sitiar. And while we'll not expect any at all into the green tree, we're still benefiting about 3 points from Serahia from our class mod, which I'll go over later. So we have field repairs and shield barriers to kind of give us that topped off feeling to kind of help El Valiente, but also to further proc the shield we have, which I'll go over later. Devil May Care is giving us movement speed, which is working well with the specialization that we have picked, but also giving us a little bit of cooldown during the downtime, at the cost of a little bit of damage taken. In the blue tree, a lot of this is where our utility is coming from, including Rinse, Preparado for a little bit of reload speed and cooldown when we're reloading, which is basically all the time. Arriba and Abajo give us grenade and action skill cooldown, which is really good considering that's a lot of what we're spamming with. And ultimately we have the right tools because we're reloading all the time. We're getting a ton of damage for our ordnances, which is the grenades, and Apophis Lance, which does deal ordnance damage. Finally, the action skill that we're using is the Apophis Lance action skill. I think it works really well with a lot of different synergies, but the main ones being Soldado. We need that, massive multiplier to our damage. The augment that we're using with this is Sangre por Sangre, which gives us a stacking CDR buff every single time we shoot our lance. So we shoot 3 at once and we get 75 down to 50 down to 25% CDR, which is pretty dang good, can't lie about that. A couple different options that I would like to use whenever the CDR kind of gets fixed. There's a bug going around with the specializations. The Gibby Stroke module actually seems pretty cool to kind of help keep up that constant ordnance damage. It can kind of help lean into that hybrid playstyle that I kind of really like for this build. The specializations we have chosen currently include sturdy stuff because this build is a bit prone to self-damage, so just having that 100% health coming out of 5 your life is a little bit helpful. Just as a side note, if you do kind of hit an enemy with splash damage that does get the kill and get you a second wind, you will just go right back into 5 your life. So you have to play around the splash radius of your Tediores in order to get a second wind in those close quarters. Bullets are Scare to me is kind of giving us a really nice damage reduction to kind of help offset the default from having Devil May Care specs in our build. But this can easily be swapped out for, I guess, the best defense. You could try Riddle use this as well. I haven't really played around with much because specializations are a grind to get. A bit of a non-negotiable, in my opinion, will be Bullet Train. That kind of helps us feel like Zane with the movement speed bonuses that we're having from Devil May Care and the 25% from Overdrive innately. So that feeds really well into the gun damage soup portion of the formula. And then ultimately all of this gun damage that we're having will now apply to our ordnances. So our grenades and our ordnances are getting half the benefit of all of our gun damage bonuses as well as all the ordnance bonuses that we're already getting for this build. So talking about the gear for this build is kind of tough just because there's a lot of stuff I haven't necessarily mathed out yet to be specific, so a lot of it's kind of just based off of vibes, and also me throwing different reloads at the target dummies on the Bones of Sanctuary just to see which number is going to be higher. But typically what I've found from my testing is that the highest damage per chuck you're going to get comes from not the homing Mervs, God bless them. They're not that great, or Mervs aren't that great in this game. Homing's still perfectly fine, but I don't necessarily like Mervs just because the damage felt very delayed. The Mervs themselves also don't bounce either, so that kind of leads to a lot of situations where on either mobile or flying enemies, they're just not going to hit, and so you just only get the impact damage, which looks lower relatively compared to other ones. But the ones that I see that get the most damage are just the ones that just say shooting on it. These explode on impact. There's no bounce like with the combo orbs, which is still really good to use. But the ones that just explode on impact, fantastic. Replicator is also really good. Javelin's really good if you can get that as well. These are going to be your best per chuck damage, especially on bosses. When it comes to mobbing, I really like homing ones. This is probably one of my favorite pistols. Homing feels a lot better in this game. The velocity at which the reloads move is a lot faster, and they seem to be a lot better at actually tracking down enemies, especially behind corners. So you can very easily just spam this into an open air during mobbing, and the little hornets, as I like to call them, do a really good job at finding enemies to murder. To talk about a few of the legendary options, I'm honestly not that impressed compared to what purples are capable of. Everyone loves the Chuck, and I'm gonna be honest, I get it. The Chuck is very fast reload, very spammable, but in terms of like the Chuck per Chuck, I just don't think the Chuck can compete with a purple assault rifle with good enough parts. The same kind of goes for the Ruby's Grasp. This one kind of just feels worse to use than a normal purple homing pistol. The main thing being that while it has a very fun synergy with, effects like Granat Circuit and Digitivider that give you even more reloads, it feels like the damage doesn't necessarily feel good unless all the little hornets hit the same target, which from my experience they don't necessarily do. unless you have like a big boss enemy. But even then, I wouldn't use homing pistols for bossing. I would just throw normal Tediores at them. One that I kind of liked, but I wanted to get better parts on. I've been having awful RNG luck. I'm not sure you guys. This game does not want me to have fun loot. That being said, I really like the divided focus. I really like the stats. It has good car damage, good ammo. I really wanted to find one with shooting and homing on it. But again, Core Observer has not been nice to me, even during his big Encore week we're currently going through. He just wants to give me his other drops, which I don't care for that much. So I would like to use this one a little bit more. The second hardest part of this build to kind of explain is the grenade slot, because it is very open to whatever you want to. You can pick grenades like the Blockbuster. The Waterfall is really good at dealing damage, but if you just want those grenades that are able to output damage and also proc Synergia for us, I really like the artillery and lingering grenades. This one is a this one is a nuke. If I throw this over here, that is visual pollution, so that's a really good, really wide radius of damage. It also has these little homing modules. This one's probably one of my favorite grenades. I just don't use it that often because I would like to be able to see. Thank you very much. Other really good ones that I like include the lingering payload and shock. This one has a really wide range on, almost kind of feels like Borderlands 3 spark plug and how wide. I've seen this hit enemy through walls. So that's just kind of an insane way to kind of keep up that gun damage from Synergia. Other good ones, artillery is always going to be pretty good. This one that kind of homes in on people is pretty good. Another one that's really good at proccing these effects are going to be Ripper grenades, as well as this one, the Chomarchy. This one almost kind of feels like the Swarm, but not nearly as annoying for me to use. One of the downsides of using this grenade is that the damage isn't fantastic, but also only has one charge and a really long cooldown. So you kind of get this at the beginning of your mobbing, then you activate your lance, and then by the time that you're done, it typically will be back unless you kind of hit and fight for your life. The primary focus of this build comes from the class mod. This is Granacerker. It drops from Primordial Guardian Radix, which kind of sucks because he kind of just sucks to fight. The little rocks he spins around him will just cause you to blow up your reloads in your face, and he has that middle phase where it kind of just stands up, and he's kind of really hard to hit directly. Even homings don't really do that well because they kind of home in onto his toes for whatever reason. So my recommendation is either pray to God or use javelins. It will always come with a gun damage roll, but the skills on this one, I like having +3 in Synergia just because it's a pretty good soup of gun damage. This one that I have has points in Arriba, Abajo, and also additional splash damage, so probably as close to a god roll as you may want. Here you can also get points of Confetti into that one. Confetti gives you a bonus element to all your ordnance damage in the element that your gun is in, but the biggest thing is that this also procs Synergia twice as quickly for all your grenades. So that's a pretty cool synergy that this is capable of doing. A bit of a learning curve with Granacerker and to a degree Digidivider and Replicator is that while there will be one reload in the direction of your crosshair, the others will be slightly offset onto either side of it. To utilize this best, you do kind of have to play that mid-range sweet spot where you can hit large enemies and bosses with multiple of your reloads simultaneously, while also staying out of your own splash radius range. This does have less of an offset, but javelins and of course homing tend to ignore it altogether. The shield that we're using is the Watts for Dinner. This drops from Primordial Vault Guardian Origo, which is very useful because it is a very good shield to kill him with. As you kind of see in this background footage, the damage between having and not having the shield on is very, very night and day. So it's a very fun farm, very easy. The main benefit is that while we have Overshield, which we get from these boosters as well as from field repairs, we deal 25% bonus shock damage. So at the best it's about a 43% bonus element against shields, and at worst it's about a 12% bonus element on anything else. So I haven't found a better shield that helps us out a bit more, so I do like this option available. For your rep kit, you kind of want anything that has reload speed on it. A buddy of mine gave me this AF1000, which is really good uptime on the reload speed, with a really low downtime. So this is really good for extended mobbing and bossing encounters where you just keep forgetting to actually use your rep kit off cooldown. But anything that kind of has low cooldown reload speed is also really good. This one's 14, this one's 9, this one's 12. But I think for all intents and purposes, AF1000 is really good. Whenever Now with Caffeine gets fixed, I could also see triple bypass being an option as well to kind of throw out all CDR options that we had and just put it directly into that. But we'll see when that skill gets fixed. And now looking at the enhancement slot, obviously we're using Tediore enhancements. The ones that I found that I like the most are going to be the banger enhancements. These ones are just a flat 50% multiplier to all of your chuck damage no matter what. Rolls that I really like on there are going to be mag size. Obviously that's probably the other larger multiplier that we're not really going to get anywhere else, so getting this on our enhancement is really good. It's 50% generic but also 75% for weapons specific, so you can get a lot of really good bossing damage from that as well. Reload speed and gun damage as well as gun type damage are also really good to have as well. As I kind of mentioned, the gun damage here is additive with El Soldados while charging, so this is not necessarily as desirable, but when you get screwed over as much as I have in terms of this RNG, you kind of take what you can get. Digi Divider is really fun to have. It just kind of is inconsistent, even though it's more damage if you can not only get all three to proc, but also get all three to hit. I could see this working really well with homing ones during mobbing, but in terms of bossing, I personally would like to have that consistent damage. I really like Recycler as well. If you get a legendary enhancement that has a lot of mag size on it, and then Recycler, you kind of don't have to worry about running out of your ammo as quickly. That being said, weighted ammo drops on this game are a lot better. Between that and having 4 different weapon slots that all use different ammo type, pistol, shotgun, AR, or an SMG alternate ammo, or just get a Vladov SMG with Tediore Reload on it, all that's going to be really good as well. So in terms of the firmware bonuses you want to go out for, the ones that I really like for this build include bullets to spare. While the fire rate isn't necessarily helping us out too much, but the magazine size is probably the biggest appeal of this firmware. We also use one firmware of heating up, because even though COV magazines ruin all of the good Tediores I ever find, 20% reload speed is actually pretty good, so I can't really complain about that. As you can currently see, I don't really have the entire firmware set out yet. Farming for firmware in this game sucks. I'm not having a great time with it. But I would say 2 points in airstrike for splash radius and damage is probably what I would go with for this build. A bit of a quick tip is that you can go into your control settings and bind your shoot and reload to the same mouse button. I have mine on mouse click, so whenever I shoot, I instantly reload. This saves your carpal tunnel from kicking in as quickly. If you wish to shoot normally, you can hold down the mouse button as so, or you can go back into the settings and hit this little reload button to reset the hotkey. So enough of talking about the gear and the skills and all that, you kind of want to know, how do I actually play this bundle of build I've got going on? Well, mobbing, I kind of like to call it the kitchen sink approach, where I kind of just throw everything at them as I want, slash you throw a couple grenades to start stacking Synergia, and you know, with the damage that we have, it oftentimes also does get a kill as well, with a little proc Soltado. Then you activate your lance for overdrive bonuses, and then you kind of just go to town with your reloads. You can either use lance to buff up your reloads, you can use it to shoot to kind of kill more basic mobs to help burst down a badass. It does kind of lower your movement speed when you do charge it, so that's kind of that trade-off you have to make for it. And then when lance ends, your ordnance will probably be off cooldown as well, so you got to make sure you're spamming those to get more CDR from a Bajo. And then with enough CDR, we don't have to worry as much between the gap of overdrive ending and our action still coming back up. The bossing of this build has a bit more structure to it. You're going to be throwing grenades at the boss or any asset that spawns to try to stack Synergia, but also proc kill skills as well. We also have enough general damage to where you can't just shoot the ad. A lot of them tend to be very weak and die in a couple shots from the assault rifle. Once Build Auto is active, you want to activate your lance to get all your overdrive bonuses. And then the main peak of our damage will be trying to move moderately quickly around the boss, while also charging your lance during reload death, and that's going to be the peak damage that we kind of get from our setup. So you're going to just burst down the boss as quickly as possible, and then when the lance ends, if the boss still, you know, is alive, you're just going to keep throwing ordnance to help restack Synergia if it's fallen off, or get cooldown from a bot. And then you kind of just cycle this. Typically on peak setups, I don't have to do this too often, but maybe when the Invincible comes out in a couple months, we'll see how that works out. If you stayed around long enough to listen to me yapping about this build for the past 20 minutes, I do sincerely appreciate you. This build was a lot of fun to create, put together, and share with you guys. It's been a great time just seeing how far I can take this build early on in Borderlands 4's lifecycle, even without all the optimal gear rules. I always try to put a lot of effort into these videos, and it kind of often stresses me out, so this is a huge weight off my shoulders to get it released. There will be a few links in the description, including the Mobalytics write-up for this build, as well as the Discord server, which myself and fellow build crafters and ship posters frequent. Thank you all for watching.